How's it going? I'm Chris Pearson with Free Beacon Marketing, and today we're talking with Mike at Grazly. We're going to go over a few questions with him just of the relationship and the partnership with 3BM and Grazly and how that's grown over the last 10 months or so. So yeah, Mike, I guess we'll start there. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Grazly, and then the customers you guys help.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So I'm one of the co-founders of Grazly with my brother Matt, and we pretty much operate in the better for you snacks and skincare category. We make snacks such as beef brisket slabs and organ crisps that not only promote health but actually taste better than traditional snacks
Uh-huh.
because nobody cares if it's healthy if it doesn't taste good. And then we also make skincare following a similar premise, which is only uses healthy traditional ancestral ingredients, and it's just as effective as conventional skincare and actually comes at a cheaper price point.
Okay.
So we want to help people to replace the stuff they're already used to with essentially higher quality stuff that works or tastes just as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's been fun working with you guys, just getting that into people's hands. Talk a little more on the regenerative side of things too, because I know that's a different angle than most snack companies take. Also, some of the content we've created together is fighting against mainstream snacks and things. So if you don't mind sharing kind of a bit about that too.
Yeah. So we use our tallow and our beef and wild game that we source comes from regenerative sources. And if you like dive deeper into it, the grass-fed label doesn't mean a whole lot
Uh-huh.
because you could have feedlot vaccinated, like given antibiotic cattle, hormone steroids, etc., that could still be labeled as grass-fed. And then like the kicker on top of it is that they weren't even fed grass. There's like various types of hay, silage, and like other feeds that counts as grass. So
Right.
when you say grass-fed, like all of that could fall into it. Regenerative agriculture is like a different story. The whole premise of it is that essentially the cattle or the bison or whatever are living in accordance like how they would live naturally. And with that, they regenerate the topsoil. So they add nutrients to the soil rather than sapping it out, which is what happens with conventional or like quote unquote grass fed, where you pretty much grow crops that suck the nutrients out of the soil. You then feed it to the cattle, and then the soil never gets the nutrients back. And like in turn, the meat and whatever else is destined to grow there in the future has like less nutrients than it's supposed to, even though technically like on the label or whatever it says a certain amount, the nutrients are simply not in the soil. Whereas regenerative agriculture actually brings more nutrients into the soil, and it's like a cycle that constantly adds more
Right.
and more and regenerates the land, and it also sequesters carbon as opposed to adding carbon to the Earth's atmosphere and whatnot.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think one of the many parts that we discussed working together is that information, that education when it comes to people saying, "Hey, I want to buy, the slabs or the crisps or change out my skincare, whatever it may be." That part of the education is important because knowing the source and knowing how it's actually impacting the earth and the community and things, that's a big deal. That's a huge part of you guys' story and how you guys operate. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So with that being said, let's kind of dive into kind of where you guys were at before we started working together. It's been,
Sure.
I think, about 10 months, right? We're going on
Yeah.
about 10 or 11 months now. Walk me through primarily helping with email, some conversation around retention strategy, just how to get repeat purchase order or repeat purchase rate up and get those people, get people into more orders. Talk me through kind of how that was looking before we partnered together, and kind of what you guys were struggling with.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So before we started working with you, Chris, we were using like a basic email model
Okay.
with all the usual flows: abandoned cart, checkout, website, post purchase, welcome flow, etc. But we were dealing with a bit of a strange product that no one else had brought into the market yet, which was organ crisps at the time. And we felt that our last email agency just didn't have a good enough understanding of the health sphere and also organ meats and that stuff in general to really educate the consumer. It was a product where it needed more product adoption encouragement. It wasn't something that people were used to seeing and something that people already knew about. So if you think like prebiotic soda in the beginning, like no one knew what that was. You kind of have to explain to people like why would you drink prebiotic soda?
Yeah.
So it was sort of like that. We needed someone who had a deep understanding of health and wellness and someone who had a deep understanding of the niche to bring a more nuanced perspective. We do things such as op-eds, which is like
Mhm.
any health topic that's trending, we dive deep on it. Our post-purchase are very complex and focus a lot on product adoption, which has proven to work over a long period of time. So that's basically why we came to you, Chris. We needed a more detailed perspective, someone who really knew the health niche, and I think we've done really well with that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think, yeah, it's an interesting, evolution, those 10 months, right? Because we started with crisps, now the slabs are kinda taking hold, getting momentum there. Tallow has been kind of a winner since the beginning. And yeah, just understanding, one, where is the market at going from mainstream to this, I guess you can call it more niche or niche, and just having that conversation with people through email. I think post-purchase, like you mentioned, is one of those flows where you can put a general post-purchase up and say, "Hey, thanks, here's how to use the product," whatever. But with you guys and what we're selling with Grazly, there has to be some education, there has to be some indoctrination, there has to be some, "Hey, here are the 6 or 7 things you're probably gonna run into when you're talking to other people. Here's the information, here's the education, here's how to approach this." So, yeah, it's been fun writing those. It's been fun putting those together for you guys. Yeah, so I guess with that being said, too, when it comes to results on the email side, at least, attributed in Klaviyo, talk me kinda through what those numbers kinda look like right before we started, and then now that we've kinda worked through the last 10 months, what do those kinda look like for you guys?
Yeah. So it's been a bit of ebbs and flows, but it's definitely looking really great. So before we started, I mean, it was a different landscape for our brand as a whole. I can pull up some exact numbers, but our
Yeah.
brand revenue was like low six figures a month, I think. And then we were attributing maybe 20 something percent to email. So
Yep.
right around when we started, yeah, we were like low six figures with 20 something attributed to email. And right now we're right about like mid six figures, like around the 500, 600K mark. And we're actually attributing over 30% to email. And it kind of took a while to figure out what the drivers were of that. And
Mhm.
I think we figured it out. The post purchase was very effective at indoctrinating,
Yeah.
but it takes some time to take hold. You can't expect consumers to know about that right away. And Chris also introduced us to other levers that we could pull that were highly effective for email, such as different products and things with deliverability.
Yep.
So right now we're sitting at a much higher revenue with an even higher email attribution. So we've been very happy with the results.
Yeah, it's been like you said, the ebbs and flows. I don't wanna gloss over that because I think it's important to note that, yeah, there's a lot of promises and offers out there of like, "Hey, we'll increase your email revenue 150, 200%, whatever, in the first 30 days." And it's like, okay, there's some skepticism and cynicism there because while that could be possible in general, with your guys' product, with your brands, with the market where it's at, it did take a little longer to figure out that conversation, that combo, the message, the offer, and the audience, trying like connecting those people, connecting those things, right? So I think, yeah, with the ebbs and flows, over the last 10 months or so, yeah, we're doing over 30%. I think last couple days, last 30, it was at 32%, I think is what we topped out at, or we're topping out at
Mhm.
right now, and it's still positive. So going into Q4, I'm excited. Some of those apps that we've added recently too, I think we can talk through some of those. So I think if you want to talk through those two, OpenSend and Mailman right now, I think is what we've got set up. But yeah, if you want to talk through kind of that experience of onboarding those pieces.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think another really important like call out for brand owners, and this is a lesson I took away, is that sometimes like the plan is perfect and it just takes much longer than you think it would. And like when you're in it, you don't know if it's going to work out or not.
Yeah.
We had so many calls where we talked about like we're doing everything right, like we need to sort out what the exact
Yep.
problem is because the attribution wasn't where we wanted it. And we like tried so hard to sort it out, and then only like way longer than we expected did it like finally come to fruition that we were doing everything right and we sorted out what the problem was, which is the apps that I'm going to touch on is in a second.
Yeah.
But it's very important to have like the strategy dialed in to know what you want and to be able to figure out if what you're doing is the right plan or if it's not. And I think in our case, it was the right plan, and we just had to add a few missing pieces. And then it turned out to be extremely effective in the end in terms of attribution, revenue, etc. And like to transition to those apps, we did have the right plan, but the problem in the end was technical. Like we just weren't getting into the inboxes. We had our retention was already proven on the non-email side, on SMS, and just people coming back on their own. So we knew people wanted the product. We knew that we were sending the correct type of emails, but for some reason the revenue wasn't attributing to the emails. And it was very simply due to the fact that the emails were not getting into the inboxes. So Chris had referred us to a service called Mailmend, which essentially gets you out of the promotions tab and into the primary tab. And that made a massive difference
Mhm.
straight away. I mean, just from the A/B test with Mailmend, we saw an 86% increase
Yep.
in email. And that won't happen with every brand. That was essentially a testament to the fact that we were already doing everything right, and our problem was just technical. It was huge. I mean, it was very important that Chris referred us to that because it made a massive difference for our brand. And now Chris had referred us to a service called OpenSend as well, which it's a white hat service that pulls profiles of people who visited your site but didn't sign up. And so you can address them in a different non-invasive type of way, like just thank you for visiting. If you were interested in Grazly, here's a code. And that has a pretty high ROI as well. I believe we're aiming for like a X ROI on that. So
Yep.
it's essentially just even more email revenue. And it's more of like a recovering wasted ad spend type of
Yep.
revenue because you're paying your cost of acquisition for these people who are coming to your website and just not converting. So OpenSend helps you recover that wasted ad spend, and it essentially just makes your CAC go down, which is super important when you're thinking about the LTV to CAC ratio.
Yeah, I think that's a big point too, is the customer, the value of the customer, right? Like you pay to get them there, whether they convert or not. There's different tools and different ways to actually one, acquire the information, the data we need on them to actually communicate with them. Because that's the formula at the end of the day, right? Like what does it cost to acquire a customer? What kind of value do we get by serving them and selling them products? And then that equation of, if you can balance that out or be positive, you can scale. And I think that ultimately, as we were installing the email system that we've installed so far with I think we're on 14 or 15 flows now. And we're still going. There's some other custom ones we're putting in place. And then we're sending 3 to 4 emails a week. BFCM is going to be a little heavier, so probably 5 or 6. But
Hmm.
that whole system's in place. And then if it to put the icing on top, or icing on top of the cake, if you will, was more technical, like you said. It was just problem solving. Okay, we're doing everything right. What has happened? Like we're kind of stuck in this mid 20% range. How do we get to 30% plus? What other pieces are missing? So yeah, I think that collaboration, that conversation between you, myself, Matt, and some of the other team on both sides, figuring out and solving that problem is the reason we're at where we're at right now. So yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, Mailman and OpenSend, there's a certain level and a certain place for those tools. I wouldn't recommend immediately out the door for everybody. Like you mentioned, if we didn't have that system in place first and then we did that, it probably would have been a waste of money because one, we're inboxing more, so the system needs to be there to do that. And then if we're capturing anonymous visitors and saying, "Hey, thanks for visiting," but that system isn't in place, then we're just kind of losing money anyway. So yeah, I think there's a place and time for it, and it's definitely the right place and time for you guys right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It was the last piece of the puzzle, so to speak. And like it's very important that Chris had actually referred us to that because we had no idea about it.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was a technical piece put in place. It's the last piece of the puzzle. So yeah, definitely excited to see how PFCM and just Q4 rolls out. So
Yeah.
yeah, with all that conversation, all that problem solving, the collaboration over the last 10 months or so, what's the relationship like now? And kind of what do you guys see as kind of like the positives right now compared to anybody else you've kind of worked with in the retention space? Kind of curious to hear what that collaboration's like and just kind of how we problem solve together.
Yeah. Now we're at a place where we know our strategy, we know the type of product adoption and consumer education that we need to do, and it's much more hands off than it was in the beginning, I would say, to where Chris and the team are highly independent. I would say like 90% independent. We still check over the emails, we still align in our biweekly meetings on strategy and on what campaigns we're going to send, what flows we're going to build out. But Chris and the team have a complete understanding of our current product, what the unique selling points are, the consumer we're trying to target, and most importantly, like the not in market consumer that we're trying to educate.
Yep.
Because that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're addressing a large total addressable market, but 95% of them are not in market to purchase. And we need to educate them, which I think is the most important piece for our brand. And Chris also has a complete understanding of the SKUs that we're going to release, which is also important
Yep.
because there's a lot in the pipeline and every single one of them has different USPs, different product adoption, different consumer education. So we focus a lot on the education piece, as you could probably tell. And essentially, it's very streamlined. We've built out a system where the campaign. We have op-ed campaigns and sales campaigns. We have our designs and our plain text, and we essentially know what we're going to do. And if there's ever something that's a little confusing, the team is quick to respond in the Slack channel, and we connect every 2 weeks. So very streamlined system, I would describe it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's the goal, is to make it take this off your plate as much as we can. And you said 90%, so I'm gonna go for that extra 10 if I can.
Yeah, that would be great.
No, I think that's important though too, is like having, because you and Matt have a different perspective and different look on things from the business owner founder side of things, right? Like I mean, some of the videos you guys do for ads, you're in the street, on the street corners talking to people about the product. You're doing stuff like that. You're working with vendors, working with logistics, supply chain, things of that nature. So you have a different perspective. So you seeing stuff as well. I think it's still important that you see it for that reason, because you guys see different things than we do. You have different
Yeah,
conversations than we do. So having that input from you guys is 100% important. And I think a 90-10 is a good split. The execution, the tactics, that's all on us. And then the strategy and just reviewing that and making sure that we're hitting the mark. That's together as collaboration.
yeah, for sure.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I guess I wanted to touch on the education piece, because I think there's a misconception there in the health wellness lifestyle niche or niches, is that education is expensive.
Hmm.
And you had mentioned that we're doing a lot of education with those out of market customers that we're bringing in. Walk me through what your thoughts are on that piece of education is expensive, because it seems to be working.
Yeah,
You see, like, we're scaling, revenue's going up, we're at 30% plus on email. The brand overall is doing fantastic right now. I think you had mentioned the other day we're already basically close to, if not hit goal for Q4, and
yeah.
everything's just gravy on top. So yeah, talk me through, kind of tie that to education of how you think that's working and why it is or isn't expensive for you guys.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Chris, and we've talked about it a lot. So I'll just describe our situation.
Yeah.
So we had decided to build out this like elaborate education system of post-purchase flows, because once people buy one time, they need to know why they should keep consuming Grazly, what the benefits are, and why it's not just a one-time thing, it's a lifestyle. And there's a huge difference between efficient marketing and effective marketing.
Mhm.
Efficient marketing is something you can measure right away, like an ad ROAS, a sales email. It's like, it's efficient. You could see the return straight away. But effective marketing is not necessarily efficient, and it's much harder to quantify a return. And
Mhm.
this is something that Matt and I have like discussed in depth as brand owners, is like this effective form of marketing. Some would call it like brand marketing,
Yeah.
where you don't see a return straight away. And so how we implemented this with email is we had these post-purchase flows, and we said, like, we're not necessarily going to look at attribution, but we need to be able to tell if it's effective
Mhm.
rather than efficient. So we like together, Chris and I looked at this metric where of it wasn't revenue for post-purchase flows, but of all the people who have ever opened a post-purchase flow, how many bought again?
Mhm.
So that's the metric we looked at. And when we looked at like the correct metric, because you could be looking at the wrong metric, you could be looking at attributed revenue, it
Yep.
came out that 78%, I believe was the number, of people
Yeah.
who clicked a post purchase flow went on to buy again. And maybe it was outside the attribution window. That was probably the case, or maybe it was something else. But that pretty much told us that the marketing was effective, the education system was effective. So I guess it's a matter of looking at the correct metric and sticking to the plan. So after we were able to determine what that metric was for us, we knew that the correct plan was in place. And like going back to the beginning, we just had to solve the final piece, which
Mhm.
was deliverability.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point to make. I think too, the founders, like you, founders in your guys' seat, building a brand, growing stuff. You're spinning a lot of plates. You're doing a lot of things. You got a team. You're making sure the doors stay open. That you're selling to customers. You can help them. And so having those conversations, even though, I mean, I remember like at least a dozen conversations on that one metric.
Yeah,
It was 7, 8, 9 conversations of like, okay, what is the actual metric we're looking at here? And we had to pull numbers from Klaviyo, from Shopify, from, you guys have that dashboard that you guys run with your retention and your repeat
yeah,
purchase and all that. And so we're just like, okay, what is the actual number we need to determine if this is effective?
mhm,
And once we figured that out, it was okay, now let's go all in. Let's again, we're running those subject line tests too for the post purchase as
yeah,
well, because we want that to be delivered. If that's delivered and they click on those emails and they go back to the site because of those, because of the education, because of the indoctrination, we have a very high percent chance that they're going to buy again. So it's
yeah,
like, cool, that solves the 1 to 2, 2 to 3 purchase problem. And I would call it's unconventional, right? Because a lot of people think education is expensive. So like, well, we're not going to educate. We're just going to say, hey, here's how to use a product. Here's some other suggested products you should buy next time. And that's really all the touch points they do when it comes to email. And we went the complete opposite and said, cool, we're going to give you a 6, 7, 8, 9 email sequence over 20 days. And we're
Yeah.
basically just going to walk through all these mainstream problems and issues and just basically teach you why this is the right choice and give them the information they need to make a decision. So yeah, it's been exciting to do that. Yeah, anything else on that you want to talk through? Otherwise, we can kind of talk through what plans are without giving away launches of new products and drops and stuff because we don't want people to see that. But
Yeah.
until it comes out. But anything else you found surprising or different or that you wanted to bring up before we talk about the future?
The only thing I would add to that is we also implemented the campaigns, and that's another one where kind of it could seem expensive on the surface, like we're sending emails that don't necessarily have a high attributed revenue,
Mhm.
which I mean, if we look at the aggregate attributed revenue, it's not even a problem. But since we know it works, since the 3BM team and Grazly have found that like we need to look at these specific metrics, not necessarily attributed revenue, we've been implementing the same style of like long form, non-sales op-ed emails,
Mhm.
which Chris has a very deep understanding of the health niche, which helps us a lot. And we implement that to our campaigns, I believe, once a week.
Basically every Friday, unless there's a promo, and
Yeah.
then we're testing some other angles on it too in E4. So
Yeah. And so Chris is basically able to help us with like a very tailored strategy of op-eds that not everyone is able to do. I mean, it's very rare to have a deep understanding of the health niche like that. And so we constantly implement on an ongoing basis.
yeah, I think we're capturing people in the untapped market or people that aren't technically like ready to buy, but they're curious. And we're helping them get to that problem and solution stage of awareness,
Yes.
right? Like the unaware stage is like typically the most expensive because you're going up market. Um, but if we can get them on the email list, if we can get them on the SMS list or both, there's a very high chance that if we can get them to purchase something, they're going to stick around. And
Yes.
I think that is the, if you will, the magic of it is if you look at this from a holistic standpoint, we're building a brand, we're building a message, we're building a brand, we're building a mission. And once people emotionally connect to that, it's tough for them to let go because it's emotional, it's connected. And the logic is now that I keep buying this, it makes me feel better, or I get to have an outcome or a goal that I like. So yeah, it's been interesting kind of adjusting and moving around, figuring out what the customer actually needs to do that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's that brand marketing piece where you don't see the return right away,
yeah.
and you really need to have a deep understanding of it to have it go right.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. That's a good add. Yeah, last, I guess, section we can go through is what does kind of the future for you guys look like over the next 3, 6, 12 months? I know we got some product drops and launches and things to do. There's also to just after this Q4, just the way things are trending. I mean, what does 2026 look like for you guys?
Yeah. I guess to address the email side of it and then maybe the general side as well, as we continue to scale on DTC, email and SMS are super important retention levers for us. LTV to CAC is, as the business owners, the number one metric that we look at. It's essentially the one metric that tells you, can you scale? Like, do you actually have numbers to scale? Do people like your product? Are they coming back for it? Or do you have like a core business issue where people
Mhm.
just don't like the product and you're doomed to burn money on marketing? So, and obviously an effective email strategy, like with the increases we've seen with our indoctrination strategy and mail mend, we have so much more recurring revenue that the LTV to CAC has gone up significantly and
Mhm.
given us room to scale and to go to a colder and colder market and keep educating the colder and colder market like we've talked about. And so we're able to like do all of that as part of one system that we've built
Yep.
out over the last 10 months. So 2026, keep scaling DTC pretty much as aggressively as we can as the LTV to CAC allows. Keep releasing new products based on the repeat data from the current products we have. What do people want the most? And just keep serving the market in that way. And I guess slightly outside the scope of email, but still related to it because people are going to wonder. They're going to come to our website, they're going to sign up for the email, and then we need to show them what they need to see. We're going into retail, starting with
Yep.
boutiques. We're already in about 20 doors in pretty much all the major cities nationwide. And we're going to start to test like the shelves are a little different because people are browsing. I think they're the leads are a little hotter because they're ready to buy, but they're less in market, I would say.
Yeah.
So we're testing out retail to see how Grazly does there. And then when people get introduced to us just on the shelves, they'll come to our website, they'll sign up, and then we need to educate them about what Grazly is trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be an interesting play to see kind of what the traffic quality and just or how do we meet them when they join when they get on the list, how they get to the site. Like, is there a shift in messaging for those? Can we tag source? Can we see, okay, this came from, a certain grocery store, a certain door you guys have in, and go from there? Because that's that's the rest of the market essentially, right? Like you guys came
Yeah.
through health and snack niche and then skincare. Now we're going like mainstream market, and you guys have a unique story with you and your brother's health story that you guys have on your site, and just what you guys shared, and I've helped share that with email. Um, it's a very unique story and it's different. It's different and
Yeah.
people will latch onto that. So cool. Yeah, two more questions for you. One, I guess I'm curious kind of selfishly, what's kind of the number one thing that either surprised you or impressed you when you started working with us or just over the last 10 months or so? What's that one thing with myself and the team that we've helped with that you're like, wow, that's different and we can't really find that anywhere else?
Yeah, I already touched on it, but I would definitely say it's the in-depth understanding of health, the
Uh-huh.
ability to build out the post-purchase consumer education, product adoption, the ability to make the op-eds based on like current events and breaking news in the health sphere. That's kind of the initial reason why we switched. We needed someone with an in-depth understanding of where our brand is, and that's definitely, I think, what impressed us the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we definitely niche down health, wellness, and lifestyle. We do that on purpose because it does take more. Reading studies, keeping up with events, what's the conversation going on in the market. Trying to do that across all e-com is basically impossible.
Yeah,
So yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that.
of
And then the
course.
last one, if somebody's watching this video and they're kind of curious of okay, kind of on the fence, or if you introduce us to somebody, what would you basically tell them about us that say, hey, give it the first 90 days and see how it goes? What would you tell people?
I would tell people that they need to know what their brand needs,
I
first of
see.
all, and you can, of course, help with that. As a consultant, Chris, you could give them your opinion on what their brand needs,
Yeah.
but I think they also need to have a really good understanding because I think our brand is unique in the way we do things, and I think that's because Matt and I knew what we needed in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then we were able to build that out. It took a long time. So the other thing I would say is that it m the results might not come as fast as you want them to,
Mhm.
but that that doesn't mean that it's not worth it. It is worth it, but it might take longer. And then I guess in terms of other advice, just be able to communicate really well. I think that's really important because sometimes even us, we don't communicate the product launches well enough or something. And that's so easily fixable and it's not like a real problem, but it could like turn into a real problem if emails are not getting sent at the right time or something. So communication is super important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we've got a pretty good cadence in Slack and then emails and calls. Yeah, that no, what do you wanna say, relationship is perfect in that sense, and you guys are running a business, you're running a brand. So, yeah, being able to communicate, get those problems, identify them, solve them, make sure it doesn't happen again. I think that's a big deal. I think it's something that we pride ourselves on is, like, we communicate. For better or for worse, we will communicate.
For sure. Yeah.
So cool. Awesome, man. Yeah, I guess final thing, anything else you want to share? Do you want to share kind of a little bit about Graze a little more where people can find your products and stuff so they can go check it out and get on the email and SMS list because they should. You want to share anything else there?
Sure. I'll do a quick plug. Our slab products, whatever you think jerky is, jerky's done. Jerky's in the past. We're not with that anymore. Jerky needed a huge revamp. It's dry. Your jaw hurts when you try to eat it, and it's full of stuff that's really bad for you. We've created a slab that tastes essentially on par with like a steakhouse steak. It's meant as a fresh meal replacement. It's a huge bag. It's a pound of brisket. It's juicy, tender, buttery. So try it out. That's
Yeah,
all.
and join the email and SMS list and get some of those emails we've been talking about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And if you want to know in depth, like how we make it, where we get it from, what the process is like, why we make it, you'll find all that on the email list.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, cool, Mike. I appreciate it. We'll go ahead and end things here. And then, yeah, if anybody else wants to find you guys, they can search either online or go to Grazly and find those products and join the list. And then, yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Mike.